21st century.
Yeah, it is. We have something called the Personnel Action Form, which is still filled out in triplicate. There are things that we need to streamline. We are actually working in collaboration with the Board of Education, which is similarly interested in a system like this. Our initial estimate is that we could get a pretty good system all in for $15,000. So what this is saying is that if we did that, any system we get would also have the online application system. We'd get rid of NeoGov and end up at a net $15,000 for the online system. If we chose not to do an HRIS system, then we would ask that the $4,100 be retained for NeoGov. But that's, again, this is really something to get us into the 20th, not into the 21st century at this point.
Is that a definite? That you've chosen a system?
No, we haven't.
Okay.
Certainly not. We go out to bid. We're early on, and
okay.
we haven't presumed anything on that. But again, we'll probably go out. When we do go out to bid, we'll probably be with the Board of Ed. But I would anticipate that we'd be able to get most of the parts we want for $15,000.
Yeah, Nancy.
Is there, in your early, sort of searching out there, any possibility of phasing in things when you say the parts that you want?
Yes, exactly. There are systems that have modules that you can use. And in fact, we talked with the folks who work for Pains. They were good enough to come out and talk with us. We talked with Kronos and a number of the others. One of the things that would be helpful is just at least a system where once NeoGov doesn't do this for us. When you apply and we capture all the information about your address and your name and all that, we have to re-enter it every time for everything. We have to re-enter it for health insurance. We have to re-enter it for pension stuff. We have to and if it changes in any one of those places, it means exactly. So I mean, this is really a ridiculously time-consuming issue. And more importantly, we want to get to a point where our employees can log on, change a beneficiary if they want to, take a look and see what if they retired at age 96, what their pension benefit would be, things like that. And so we would hope to add over time, but the initial goal is to focus on some of the onboarding stuff and some of the paper-based system like again, it'd be great if you could log on and see how many vacation days you had without having to translate an Excel spreadsheet, which is where we are.
On that too. I would imagine then have a great ability for other output, like you're saying, so when it comes to sort of a benefits at a glance kind of a thing, can you give a better picture to employees on what their
Exactly.
benefits are?
One of our big concerns is
compensation
employees.
statements?
That's it. I mean, as Anita pointed out, by the time you load in benefits, it's a very different financial picture. And I think it helps when employees really understand the extent of the benefit that they get from employment.
Does our current technology platform support this?
Yeah, our current technology platform, all the vendors we've talked to have said that they can get these things to interface.
Almost all of them are actually browser-based now, and so some of them it takes care of actually having any hardware. It's really just a licensing fee, and everything's in the cloud, so to speak, because it's a hosted service.
So they have the exposure for cyber attacks?
That's correct.
Data protection, so we don't necessarily carry it, whereas now everybody steals the boxes, we're in trouble.
And we're still pressing on our current vendor on Finance Plus to do a better job with what they offer us.
Okay.
Anything else on this?
No, I mean, there's a possible opportunity. There's a few of these things that if we ended up with, for instance, the pension administration, there are certain expenses we have, like every time an employee wants to see what their benefit calculation would be. We actually, especially for final calculations, we have to run those through Milliman, our actuaries, and that can be to the tune of $450 every time we put a request in. Some of this could be cost savings if people could log on and just do a quick, especially with the defined benefit, it's really just math.
If you had the rules loaded somewhere, there should be not a $400 and a 5-day wait.
Right.
It ought to be something you could look at pretty quickly.
401k calculations are real easy to figure out.
Right. So there's a chance there we could stop paying some of that.
Right.
Is the Board of Ed on the same system you are now, or is Are they using something else?
We are on, for their recruitment, they use it.
No, for their, do they have anything in place now where an employee could do that?
We don't really
So
have
if a
any-
teacher wants to go on and see what they're,
They do
They
have
are.
some systems, yeah, but they've done the same thing. They do have some, our finance system is called Finance Plus, and they do have some modules working for them that have not worked for us. But they've taken the same approach. We want to get away from hiring NeoGov and then hiring some other program. It just makes sense to have integrated systems, and as we continue to talk about shared platforms in different areas, it's important that we communicate on this.
And they are, I think last year was their first year using more of an employee dashboard from the HR module that the current Finance Plus system has. And we've had meetings about that. I think they've been reasonably happy with it. It's also just the first year. But what they don't have, something we'd think about in the future, is also time and attendance.
Right. So
we had a meeting discussing, that's something our current system can't do, but obviously big companies like Kronos and others do that, and a lot of others possible. So some of that's just a discussion. Some of them really are a la carte in terms of how many of those modules you want
You
to
can
add on,
pick, exactly.
and you pay a per employee fee.
so you don't see any problem interfacing those two systems because they already have one started and you would be starting from scratch, so to speak?
Well, to the extent they're using Finance Plus, which is the mothership here, we will have to integrate with Finance Plus anyway, so I think
That's our full accounting system and payroll system too, so we're not proposing overhauling that. We have seen demos of their HR module. It's certainly an afterthought. They're an accounting system first and foremost. But certainly, if we could make that work for us, that would be a great.
That's what we would do.
That would be a great savings, it sounds
Yeah.
like.
We're very open to that.
Any other questions on that? Lennon? After that, you'll see full-time, that incorporates the Eric Gomez salary into our office, the reduction in the first selectman salary beginning in December, and the Sean Kimball change that were all voted on at Personnel Subcommittee and then the Board of Selectmen in July. Special activities, that is, we have actually not had that in the past, but we spend it year over year over year. So I trued that up in terms of historical accuracy, and that's to reflect historical spends like employee award ceremonies, recognition ceremonies, retirement recognition, and the like. That we've never. I put it in a line item to make it more transparent because we do spend that. This is what we spend over time, so I wanted to make it reflected a little bit more transparently. If you flip to administrative.
Just go back real quick.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Just so I understand, because the benefits coordinator, we already planned for that. That's the 65, and we closed out a finance position previously to fund a portion of that, right? And then it was coming out of the insurance fund as well, right?
So the entirety of Eric's salary was covered under the internal service fund. Correct.
Okay.
The finance position is in my area. and
Right.
I did remove that this year. I mean, we had chosen not to staff it in the past.
Right, because we were doing something with that.
Correct.
That's part of the whole change as well.
Yeah.
Okay. And then you said the reduction to the first selectman salaries at
Beginning in December.
December,
Yeah.
and I assume that's the 75 that we previously talked about?
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, I just wanted to make sure I understood how the math worked. Thank you.
Okay. And then under administrative services, you'll see conferences and education. As I mentioned before, we used to have the bulk of that in our office, and we farmed it out to the different departments, so you'll see that we kept 2,000 for the first selectman's office. Under the consultant line, we reduced that by 15,000, and that's based on anticipated needs. This has been used in the past for surveys. We used it for the personnel survey. It's used for if another department has a need and they don't have it in the budget, we might use it for that. This year we're anticipating we don't need as much as we have in the past, so we reduced that by 15,000. Copying and printing, you'll see that at 6,000, and again, that's based on on historical figures or what we actually spend. And the copying and printing is for all town hall, not just for the first selectman's office. Telephone service, you'll see that Joe Mancini, there's a reduction there because Joe Mancini, congratulations, renegotiated our contract and led to a fairly significant savings in that area. Travel, you'll see this is another lateral move. We moved most travel expenses to department heads for their management and responsibility and kept 500 in the first selectman's office. Any questions on administrative?
Is that enough, given the number of conferences that your office and your staff attend throughout the year? From a travel standpoint?
We're not going to any next.
Yes.
In all seriousness, because I know there's
That's true.
been necessary travel in the past.
We've kept it very local, and we have, Sean and I have to join, belong to a number of local groups that do very well for not very much. In the past, we have gone to ICMA conferences. Our goal is to only do that when they're local.
Okay.
Next year, that one's in Seattle, so we're not going to go through.
Yeah, so we took that off the list.
Appreciate you taking that.
Went to Boston.
Yeah.
You talked about the communications salary possibly being increased. Is that included in here at all?
It is not.
It is not, okay.
Any other questions? Then going on to Board of Selectmen Community Services. You will see here, there's a couple things that we did. Under special activities, this is a change, again, to true up. It's to reflect historical figures, and what the 7,000 is for is, the bulk of it is for the Memorial Day Parade, Hometown Hero, other ceremonies that are sponsored by the Board of Selectmen as things come up, or other recognitions by the Board of Selectmen. And that's just to reflect what we've spent historically in that area. You'll see that under public agency support, that changed a little bit. We moved the teen center to social services, so that was a lateral move. And CROG increased $1,314.36. And that's why the change there. And then you'll see under legal services and fees, that's essentially the same, no change. And if you get under health contractual services, this is going to be our first request for the wish list, because we discovered an error as we were going through this. There was actually a very small increase that we had, and we thought we had added in the books, but it should be $122,694 to reflect the contractual increase.
What was that, Lisa, again?
122,694
Okay. From 111?
from 119,281.
That's okay, guys, we'll have this electronically as well.
I'm sorry, that number was?
Yeah, this is the health contractual services number. This is basically Farmington Valley Health District. So it's we don't have much control over this one. The 2015 budget was 119,281. It has been increased to 122,694.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
No, I think I'll save my teen center activity for maybe a teen center. Teen center.
Okay, thanks. All right.
Mama?
Then we will move on to finance and begin with the tax collector.
So you don't have Colleen today, but you have a gift basket from her. It's still
You guys, we still have time to run out. Hi, guys.
I gotta go to Dunkin' Donuts. Let's see what's there. Time to go to the donut.
That's a tax day for each of us.
All right, that one's good. All right, you're good.
You guys want me to do finance first, or just go into tax?
Why don't you start with, actually, we have finance there, so you can just start with finance. I jumped the gun.
I don't have any presents. Oh, what happened there? Full screen. There we go.
What is it, Sean? Is it a bundle of cash?
Tax refund.
I don't recognize the face of the bill, though.
Tax refund.
Not that there's anything here, guys, because I've only been here about a year, but wanted to give a quick overview of three departments we'll be covering underneath. Finance department, tax collector, as well as the assessor, and then IT will be on its own. This presentation didn't arrive in time, evidently. All right, so accomplishments, just listed a couple small things. You know, Lisa pointed out the telephone savings that we had. I can't figure out how to make it stop.
I think Rick just made that happen.
You guys are gonna see positive pay coming in the next month or two. We negotiated at zero cost to the town, which was rather nice of Simsbury Bank. Goals for the future, similar to what my goals are for with personnel. Just maintaining the GFOA cert, AAA rating, and exceeding investment income budget. So the investment income, we actually have an RFP that we're going through right now. We did it in collaboration with another town We should be awarding something shortly. This is slow. All right, so what's in my request? Request is to resurrect the assistant finance director. Right now, I essentially have, how do you stop this thing?
You just gotta stop leaning on the keys.
I'm not touching it. All right.
Stick to the money.
So, my department, as you know, we have two people. Outside myself, we have accounts payable / payroll person as well as an accounting supervisor. The accounting supervisor is doing the role of an assistant finance director, as easy as I can put it. So I'm trying to resurrect that position. She's definitely identified as it. I'd like to get that included if possible. Also, with the AP payroll employee, she is currently working 40 hours a week. I'd actually like to make that be part of her salary, right? I'm just giving her 5 hours of overtime a week. Statement of work far exceeds 35 hours a week. I simply can't keep her under it. And part of the reason for that is we've eliminated the one position that has been vacant since December of 2013. While another position would be nice, that statement of work or that position, I don't need that position. I need something that's a little bit higher than that. And I'm also asking for an additional $4,000 for a seasonal employee. You guys have never funded that in the past. I did have one this past summer and it was beneficial to us. So, do you want me to keep going through audit service? Well, there's really no change in audit services. And Board of Finance, Board of Finance was basically just updating for historical actuals, for advertising, copy and printing services. I did ask for $800 for 6 tablets. These are obviously not iPads. These are an interesting, it's a Walmart brand called Nextbook. I bought one in December. We absolutely love it. But that is not part of the recommended. Having said that, I would still like to see
Sorry.
this kind of hope for it.
He's trying.
It seemed like a spiteful cut.
It is for the Board of Finance. No way.
Part of it is I would actually like to see your father try and figure that one out.
But to Joe's point, I mean, we do spend a lot of money on paper and staff time on copying, and this would be an efficiency and a reduction. So it is a reasonable request. I did not recommend it, however.
I agree. So, wherever possible, I did adjust down for historical actuals. Bank fees, for example, I pushed down $1,400. I cut out $620 worth of miscellaneous expense and copy and printing services. Just I'm not using it. I don't know why it was there. And we obviously added back in the conferences. I think I requested $1,500. It's down to $1,000, which is more than fair for finance. I don't go to too many conferences out there, especially ones out of state. Any questions?
Sean?
So overall, you're down about 4.5%.
Yep.
On the finance side. And then you talked about the interest. We've been budgeting with 25,000 historically.
Yep.
So right now we've got 25,000 in the budget.
Correct. Until we award the contract, I haven't plussed that up. That's probably a Board of Finance conversation, but
Okay.
I expect that to be $200,000 next year, minimum. That assumes $10 million invested at 2%. Those would be layered across CDs all across the country.
Yeah. So my point is, you still don't want to buy my iPads for $800.
You can add it to the wish list, Sean. Feel free. Do you want to add it?
I don't want to teach you all.
So much easier to see the investments.
Do I have a request to add $800 for iPads for the
Not
Board of
from this end of
Finance?
it.
I think that's a little spiteful.
Somebody's gonna have to teach them how to use it.
My house.
I was actually doing this to punish Rick.
Are there any other questions for Joe?
Go ahead.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. The cost increase for the Hartford Current, and I think that might be related to the previous question around the reports you have to, the announcements you have to put in there, but annual report, have you
All of it.
competitively redid printing?
I think we did. We just went with a new vendor last year. I believe it was competitively bid.
We do work with print vendors all the time,
Okay.
and I just think that, and I don't know how much of the $1,500 is against that, but if you're looking for $800 for your Tablets. It's just a suggestion to, whatever portion of the annual report is associated with printing that,
Okay.
and I don't know what the total budget is for that.
What was the amount, was it?
I'm against your
4,000?
suggestions.
It was 5,000?
now. Yeah,
Well, the copy and print service under Board of Finance, 6,000.
yeah.
I think that was all of it, and then the 3,000 in advertising, so it's
That's for the Board of Finance.
Yeah, we can try and competitively bid.
Yeah.
I'm more than happy. So if I'm able to cut that $6,000 down, I can go buy a couple iPads, not iPads.
A computer.
Maybe 4.
Just pick my favorites and go with it.
A suggestion.
I have one other.
Yeah, sure.
Good, yeah.
My favorite part is moving the percentages, but if you got the additional personnel money, what does your percentage overall become?
What do you mean?
So if you added back in,
The $4,200?
Yes. I'm trying to,
$42,000?
where, yeah, $4,200, I guess it was.
It would be an increase of, hold on. Let's get off that main screen so they don't see my notes.
It's too late for that.
I just don't know how to pick up directly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Something like that. This is how I break stuff too.
It's happened at last meeting.
42,000.
right?
Yeah, I actually still love you guys.
Oh, sorry, I was, yeah.
Sizable increase, about 8%.
So it's 7.
And then that, you'll note the contractual changes were relatively heavy, not pointing anywhere, but.
Over there.
We'll talk later.
You're part of it.
You can tell what kind of week we had.
It's not responding.
Maybe at this point, from a staffing standpoint, Joe, you're comfortable with,
Am I gonna come back next year after we have more certainty around the Hartford and we have a better grasp on some significant grant list growth? I would expect me to ask for an additional head. I did not do it this year given the uncertainty, and I'd like to have a better understanding of the landscape between myself and the Board of Education. There might be an opportunity for synergies there. Burke and I have had conversations, but in all honesty, we've had a lot going on. I'm actually kind of surprised how much busier it was here in Westhaven. It's good busy though.
Good answer.
Guys, my computer's actually crashing.
Do you see any possibility for a mid-year adjustment in the personnel numbers or no?
No, I can make it for the year. Yeah, good luck. I don't know. Yeah. Sean broke it.
That was easy. I'm just saying.
Oh, seriously.
It's working now.
No, it's not. The mouse is actually moving on its own.
It's technically.
Maybe you should get computers, you don't know how to use them.
Oh, Joan, I'm so happy you're here.
I thought you weren't listening.
You weren't
I
gonna
want to
talk
listen to
today.
campaign.
Not something listening.
The other important part of
I'm
what I
learning.
submitted for the budget, audit services, that is a fixed dollar amount. You do not have a contract for it. That essentially assumes if I competitively bid it this year, that we get the same rates, or I sign a one-year extension with them.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Joe at this point? Okay, so Colleen is not here, so are you presenting it, or are we gonna?
I'll do
put that
tax
up?
department, that's fine. Yeah, Colleen is actually sitting in the sun somewhere. Forget exactly where.
What do we
Oh,
have to
don't
do
tell us
that?
that.
I know, huh?
It's open season.
I don't know, there's something else to do. All right, so tax department. She actually runs a pretty tight ship. You guys have seen, I think, over-planned collection rates since the 1980s. You guys are collecting right around 99.5%, you're planning at 98.5. It's really impressive. I mean, you guys didn't even really dip down in 2008, 2009. You guys have also seen a consistent increase in the number of online bill payments. That's a nice transition, keeps people out of the office. Seems to be less errors when it's in the taxpayers' hands because they do everything electronically. one thing I do give her credit for is she successfully transitioned from 2 full-time employees to 1 full-time and 2 part-time. It's difficult. You don't have your hands on people that are typically part-timers, but she's successfully made that transition, hoping she's able to keep that going in the future. We did actually start using a collection agency this year. It's a company that I used out of West Haven called TaxCert. They have a state contract. We gave them all old vehicle taxes. So people that have, essentially it's people that have left the town, left the state. This company tracks them down. They do what's called skip tracing. They tack 15% onto whatever that person owes, and they collect it. So it's actually at no cost to the town. Returned about $15,000 since we signed. Companies like this, they're pretty good. They're actually very good at collecting taxes. I don't recommend you guys get too aggressive with it because it does have a tendency of having some backlash. But this was a good experience because this is $15,000 you guys wouldn't have had otherwise. So what are our goals for the future? Obviously continue to collect above budgeted collection rates, and in the future you're going to see her transition to majority of electronic billings. The company that we use called QDS, Quality Data Systems, they're still building it out, but they're going to have the capability where people are going to start receiving their tax bills electronically. They'll get monthly reminders if they're late. It's a good thing. It'll cut down on mailings, paper, printing, all that fun stuff. But we're living in a technology age.
If you look at Colleen's sheet, you'll see that it's almost all contractual increases, the lateral shift for conferences, some savings on tech program supplies, and the one increase is $120 for dues and subscriptions. So that's the extent of her increase, other than contractually obligated ones.
You did cut out the 120.
Which isn't in here.
Oh, I did cut it out.
Yeah.
Oops, sorry, I
Yeah.
forgot about that.
No, I was just gonna ask a question around what that was in particular.
The 120?
Yeah.
She actually didn't have enough defense for it, which is why she lost it.
We literally went through line by line.
Yeah.
Yeah, Sean?
And if,
You piqued my interest with that whole collection service, so are we paying for that, or do they just get their fee on top of it?
they add it right on top. So if it's a $100 bill, they will charge the taxpayer $115.
Right.
They take the 15 right off the top.
So those collection agencies aren't, from what I understand, subject to federal or state collection laws, so they can pretty much do whatever they want to people. Do we have any concern with that?
No, not with these guys. I'm not aware of that.
There's several articles, a lot of municipalities are having problems with this, where people are getting taken to court, they're going after people that it isn't actually their tax liability, they can call them as much as they want.
I've seen
It's a
it
whole
on
different set of rules.
I've seen it on the lien sales. I haven't seen it with these guys.
So probably not for tonight, but I think we should, as a board, probably hear more about that,
That's
because
fine. Would you guys like to?
we'll be on the hook for something we don't even know about.
Fair enough. Would you guys like them to come out and present?
Yeah, I think
Okay.
so.
I'll find out the next time that they're around.
Collection business is not the most sunshiny business, so.
If it helps any, the guy that's actually in charge of the account, I believe he's a Mormon that spent 15 years living in on a mountain somewhere.
I'm sure he's well, but I just want to, again, there's good ones out there, and there's ones that are more trouble, so.
All sorts of images coming from that.
Oh, I swear to God.
Could go in a lot of different directions.
Moving on, thank you very much.
I don't know if that's how Colleen is.
Okay. Are there any other questions for the tax department for Joe? That is under Joe's department. You'll see, it interestingly enough, also technology is under Joe, under finance. So we'll move on to that.
No, David.
David. Let me just start with David. When I did my budget before we had the information about the OPEB, there was one thing in my budget that I regretted not being able to do. And it was the position that David is talking about. At the time, I didn't feel, I felt, we looked at the current economic conditions. I was aware that the cost of living adjustment that our seniors are getting is 1.7, so that sort of was my target. At that time, we didn't have the revenue or the reductions in savings that enabled me to add the position that David's going to talk about tonight. I will be, in light of the new savings we have gotten through OPEB, I will be recommending that this position be added, that David will talk about it. And it's two reasons. One, it will help us get more accurate assessments, but it's also important for succession planning. So David, why don't you begin your...
some point it's more.
Thank you. We did have a
Let's go to the next slide.
little over 3/4% increase in the grand list as filed this year as compared with the previous year. Previous increase from 12 to 13 was 0.596. We do, our office administer tax relief programs and include about 300 under the local elderly program and about 200 qualify for local additional veterans. We're halfway between revaluations, so we need to get started on 2017 revaluation. We have to get to make a pretty thorough pre-review, not a complete measure list or anything like that, but a thorough pre-review of the field, and that would require personnel. It either has to be in the assessor's office or in the evaluation company. My experience has been that when we had an assistant assessor and worked on the 2007 revaluation, we got a good quality revaluation. It's fairer to the taxpayers, and it's I think it's something that would be good for the town. We've got on the request is adding the assistant assessor to eliminate the part-time clerk. Keep the Board of Assessment Appeals clerk that was added last year, and take care of the contractual increases. The comments with the needs and the benefits of having an assistant assessor. Be good to have somebody in the office that can deal with appraisal issues that may come up in my absence. Have somebody who will have a primary role in the pre-review for the reevaluation. We can hope for better assessment quality and consistency than we might get through the evaluation company. And assist in managing the building code, following and tracking value changes, so that we may know a little sooner when the Board of Finance is looking for a number of, well, my list doesn't have to be done normally until the end of January, but be a little more help to the board with that. And just to kind of give you an idea of where we are in relation to other towns, a little research. This is either from public sources or from conversations with assessors. They're approximate numbers, but just to give you a flavor of one fairly standard type of measure, which is the number of parcels of real estate divided by number of full-time equivalent employees. And if you look at where we are now, so we're at about 3,700 parcels per full-time employee. Farmington is close to that. All the others are below. So this would put us in nearer the middle. And again, it's not people to say that, well, because so-and-so has this number of employees, then we ought to have a number of employees, but it does give you an idea of whether it's within the realm of reason. I think this puts us in an area where you might expect it to be. It's not entirely a new position. We did have an assistant assessor from the latter part of 2002 until 2009, when the second assistant assessor left to take a job, and it wasn't filled.
And David, you'll note that if this position is put back, then you eliminate the need for the part-time.
Right.
So that would be reduced by $21,899 if this position is accepted by the board.
Right. So
Oh, I'm sorry, did you want to?
No, please go ahead. I'm sorry.
I just wanted to make sure I was understanding what the net increase then would be. So it's 37,000 because the position is 59, but we would reduce by 21.
Correct.
Correct.
Okay.
37.
Is there any,
I'm sorry, 37,197.
is there any further reduction?
Plus or minus a penny.
Because of the cost of the evaluation company that will be coming? I mean, how much do we pay for these services?
Last time around, we paid our contracts, evaluation contracts totaled $300,000.
And we would save money on that?
Well,
Or some of it? I don't know.
I think I'm not sure much of that we would save, we would not have them do certain things. I think we
That's
probably
what I
have to
was
break
thinking,
it
part
up.
of it.
And have them do certain things where we give additional, we would probably would certainly hire somebody to do a consultant commercial. And I would expect to work with the evaluation company on some of the data entry, the value review, the final review, I would just review. But this will help pick up things that maybe we've had to convert systems in the past, and this will pick up some of the things.
So there's some potential savings there. No?
I don't want to overstate it, that's why I'm just hesitating.
Okay,
but
David is the
I
most
think it's a
conservative
improvement.
estimator there is.
It's a possibility. No promises.
Just a couple of, I'm sorry, Sean.
No, go ahead.
Just a couple of things that I'd like to add. One is, we actually planned for consideration of this. We had a retirement in David's office, and rather than hire a full, long-term replacement, we hired somebody whose contract is expiring at the end of this year's budget, so that opens up that space. It's not like we're going to have to lose somebody. The other quick point I'd like to make to you guys is that two of the changes you've heard about today. One is the reclassifying of the position that reports to Joe, and this position are really a very important part of some kind of successorship planning here. We have, right now, I can't even imagine where we'd be if we didn't have David, and we don't have any kind of backup for that. It is something that we've done given the tough economic times we face, but really there are some risks involved in where we are right now, so this makes a lot of sense.
That's a fair point.
Sean?
This is a question more on the reval. In the past, haven't we typically pre-funded the pending reval through CNR?
That's a great question, and Joe can speak to that. I asked that exact same question in the budgeting process.
I haven't
Joe?
seen it funded as part of CNR, but there was, it looked like you guys would do random appropriations as balances became available. So as you get closer to the end of the year and you recognize that you collect 99.5% as opposed to 98 or 98.5, you guys would just appropriate money into a fund.
I think we were approving it through the same place where we do LoSiP, and I say CNR, I know it was
Correct.
coming out of the general fund.
Transfers.
There's typically, that's the place where we stick everything when it doesn't have another home, we approve it all in there.
Correct.
Typically what we've done, right?
Yes.
So, and that's not in the conversation at this point, because
It's part of conversations I've had with the Board of Finance for this year and any available balance that you have towards the end of the year. So rather than like last year where they appropriated $1 million during the budgeting process to pay for capital expense, this year that's one of the items that we want to fund.
okay. So at this point, we're not being expected to count that as an expense in our budget?
No.
Well, that's a great
Good.
question. I asked the exact same question. Good question. Mike?
To Tom's point about succession and everything else in different departments, I think that is something we should be, I'll say, constantly thinking about.
Absolutely.
And to David's point, is there a possibility of an interim or doing this higher midterm of the year as opposed to starting on July 1st?
Heck of a promo.
I do realize you're losing a person
Right.
July 1st.
I don't think so, because we don't have, well, we don't have the money for it. I would hope that we could
That's
start.
what this is.
No. If he gives you the money, right?
Oh, yeah. You know, well,
This is
I
a good
think-
question, Dave.
I'm not saying it's how it is, but the person hired.
Okay.
situation, yeah, we'll discuss that.
But what you might not offset. I mean, in other two people, we'll keep that person on, but if there's, we can explore whether or not there's
We could explore
financially
extending the
viable way.
part-time for 6 months and doing a staggered start, absolutely.
Yeah,
Do it in steps or however you want.
even doing job search.
That's absolutely a possibility, and that would reduce the operating increase for this year, but, it would be absorbed over time in the next year, which is a perfectly appropriate way to do it.
Keep $598.50.
If we did it that way?
A half year basis, or
18?
18,000. On the increase for this year, right? You cut the increase in half. You're funding it, it'll eventually cost you $59,096.
Right, next
But
year.
the increase this year is only $37,197. You divide that in half because you're only funding.
That's right.
Right, so
That's right.
still absorb the whole 59 next year. but-
Yep. So that's a possibility. Would anyone, I'll make the recommendation, but would anyone like to join me in recommending that we add this as to the wish list for this position?
I'll join you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Please put that on the list, Joe.
Yeah. Wish list, love this item.
Excellent.
Thanks, David. Great job.
Good job.
Okay. We will next begin with Mickey Wacor's.
We got the Mr. Lozano, I think.
I keep forgetting everyone. Rick.
Oh, that's right. Forgot me originally as well.
Must have gone to that spam filter.
If I could break the ice right now after our previous discussions.
We're smiling,
I feel
guys.
like Billy the
Smiling.
Kid walking into his last saloon. That's okay. Do we have slides, Joe, or is this all technology?
Well, let me look at what you sent.
This is part of the budget, good, right? You kind of squint to see him. Break it all more, and then we got 4 more.
Just some of the highlights that we had last year on the IT side, and there's been a lot. Start off with the Simsbury Public Library. We updated all their network switches that we had from last year. They were connected to the Nutmeg network at a 1 gig speed, which was great for them. So now they're pretty much as fast as you can get at the public library, and it seems like everyone's pretty happy there. If they're not, I would know in about 2 seconds. If the phones start ringing, don't pick them up. On the police department side, we went to cloud-based spam filtering and antivirus. Instead of bringing it in-house, we left it up in the cloud, and that's running successful for them. Also on the PD, we went with some appropriated money last year with video cameras in the cruisers. So all cruisers have been outfitted with the newest technology on video capturing and surveillance from their vehicles. Also in their vehicles, we upgraded their MDTs, which are their mobile data terminals. They were updated with Patrol PC. That's the name of a company out of Boston. It's all US made, and the equipment that was in there before was 7 years old, and it was time to go. On the building department and engineering side, the IT department was involved in the GIS initiative, which has now been published on the web. The daily operation that I think Carolyn Kiley said it best is that we're pretty much involved with everything, all departments are, and this is where we have building, assessment, and engineering coming together, including me, to get that presence on GIS. A couple other things last year, and the information was passed on to the first selectman's office. We were successful in getting a grant for the Nutmeg Network, and have a little bit more for that. Regional sharing initiatives still continue, specifically with the Nutmeg Network CDN connection that the town is pursuing. In addition to the fiber, if you heard about the fiber project that we have with some CIP money we had last year, that's underway now, but it's been pretty much postponed for a little bit because of the frozen ground. Last week, they were trying to pull cable in a frozen conduit, and it's like, well, you guys come back in the spring and we'll talk about it.
July.
So that fiber project's pretty good. Just to give you a recap, that fiber project is the Hot Meadow Corridor, and that's connecting all municipal and fire stations on that corridor, including the water pollution control facility. Not to miss our Board of Education folks. We're going to have a back loop that's going out this building to Central School to connect to their networks. And at the other head end, this will be one head end. The other head end is at Simsbury High School. So we'll have a nice
pretty much uniform fiber network, sharing that with the Board of Education. And at the Board of Education meeting, Jason will probably discuss their last piece of fiber, which is really the Latimer Lane School. And once that school is up and running, pretty much almost every building outside of Parks will be connected via fiber. Sorry, Jim, but we're working on it. Let's see. We continue with our Windows 7, Windows 8 migration, and we were successful in our virtual desktop rollout. Anything else, Joe? So those are a recap from last year. Oh, we completed the CCAT study. It was some funding we got from the capital improvement. We did a needs assessment. CCAT is an organization, nonprofit, under the CROG umbrella, and they came in for about 2 months or so. And they had various studies done, and one of the things is pretty much in line with what we're trying to achieve with getting to the Nutmeg Network, starting with that regional sharing planning, updating some equipment, which we have the funding for. So leading into the budget discussion, you'll see that there isn't a lot of increase in my daily operations budget. The money you really do see of $6,800 there is pretty much on the contractual, which is really tied to offloading of services to the cloud rather than keeping me inside and managing them. So that's where that increase is coming from. Questions, concerns?
One other thing. He
was so close.
I know. He's also been responding for us to a CROG initiative for a demonstration program on the Nutmeg Network. It's a voice over internet protocol project that we may very well get some nice contracts out of it. It probably isn't going to be a total answer for us, but again, Rick's taken the lead on that too, so a lot of forward-thinking stuff coming out of that too.
Does everyone understand what that Nutmeg Network is and CDN piece? Because that's really important for municipalities as we go forward in the future. It's very important that we have an internet connection, a stable internet connection to go out to this cloud, which is pretty much owned by the state and shared by municipalities, where we can start sharing applications, troubleshooting. It's just a thought in the sky that we have to do with it once it's there. And that's really the focus now. That's where the fiber is, and that's where we keep our focus while we turn our local attention to virtualization and upgrading our hardware to support those. John?
Anything we need to think about from a data protection, cyber protection standpoint that we're not currently looking at?
We have, on my goals, you don't have the goals for the department, and one of them is the completion of a security audit. One of those things in the needs assessment that came out was a security audit. The last one that was done for us was in 2007. So it's time for that. But that funding there, again, I kind of like hit the wave, or we hit the wave, is that I could use that CIP money. There is consultant money in there, and that's where that's going to come from.
But we do have a system in place. We go through Cisco.
Yeah, right now we're still protected with Cisco firewalls and Cisco technology. When when that Hot Meadow fiber piece comes up, that grant money that we got actually will update the electronics on both ends, which will have firewalls. And also, one of the things that came out in the needs assessment is that some of our workers, they can't get here, they would like to try to work from home, so that stable connection coming into town hall to work is very important in a secure manner.
Right, but that working from home would actually increase our exposure from a cyber standpoint, wouldn't it?
It would. It would. That's why when we go forward with that product that we put at the perimeter, at the edge perimeter, it's an SSL type of connection, is that on that device, whether they're be on their own personal device, because the town's not going to buy them individual machines to work from home.
Right.
But on their device, it's a tunnel, a secure tunnel back here, and they're picking up a virtual desktop that's secure in space.
So it's independent from the network, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And that does cost some money, but as we move forward, it's kind of like a phasing approach that we're doing.
And I think you're talking about just regular penetration testing from a security standpoint will be built in.
And that's going to happen this year as well.
And forgive me, I know this is a little bit outside of the scope of the budget, but it gets to the point of expenditures. Do we have, the breach plan? I mean, protocols in place if we do get breached, if data does get popped?
The breach plan is that we were with Trend Micro right now, and they do have a support staff, so they're on call for us, but that's an expensive proposition for us. So if we do get breached internally, we try to stabilize where it's coming from. Could be as easy as pulling a server out of service temporarily and then calling them up for support. But that, again, that's a high-priced solution.
Yeah, so it's higher price when you get popped. So two things I would recommend. One, we look at our insurance, because from the management liability side, that's what cyber liability pays for when you do get popped.
Yeah.
There's obviously a mitigation period, but you have to have protocols, you have to have plans in place in order to keep the cost down or even buy the coverage too. We should probably talk about it. I don't know if public safety is the right place for it or somewhere. There needs to be a breach plan in place internally for
I would love
what
to
we
be
do
part of that
here,
discussion,
communications with whoever I don't know if public safety is the right place, but wherever it is,
I
because
know
that's.
technology is looking at some cybersecurity, but it could be
Yeah.
both. It could be a combination.
Yeah, but it's really important because the first 24 hours makes or breaks you, and then you're talking about thousands versus tens, hundreds of thousands
Right.
from a mitigation
And
standpoint.
especially now that we're pretty much all connected in one way or fashion,
Yeah.
is that, we do have the firewalls in place now, but a possible, denial attack or something like that could hurt most or part if that did happen
Yeah.
of the town.
I mean, obviously, we've got a lot of good things with the HR system being in the cloud, and we're not responsible for that, but we're going more, virtual with tax records and, payments and everything else. And I don't know what the security requirements there, but again, I'd rather spend some money now to help mitigate the exposure we have there versus pay
Absolutely.
far more money than we can ever
And that
quantify.
that was one of the tasks of the technology, is to start looking at our cybersecurity needs, and that process has begun with the CCAP, but those are great suggestions.
And actually, Sean, that's what I'll do. I'll put that on our next meeting, which is April 6th.
And we can certainly do a referral to public safety as
Again, I don't know
well.
if that's the right place, but wherever.
Certainly, let's, technology
Somebody
task
should be
force is
spearheading it,
like,
'cause it's-
we can give them a shot at it.
Okay.
That might be where to begin.
Well, it's
Disaster
to that
response.
end, if you talk to your insurance company, when you're doing, look at your cyber insurance, they'll actually come in and audit.
And do an audit,
To help you figure out which eye you got across.
We have
rather than you reinventing it.
We have a crime policy through Travelers. Computer fraud is up, we have $1 million in coverage, and then we have a computer program restoration, about $100,000.
Neither of which will cover you for cyber.
Yeah.
Possibly.
You need a specific.
Yeah, I mean, if there's, that's a.
I can't comment any further on that.
We will add that to our investigation.
I would
and report
strongly
back.
suggest you look at a cyber liability policy, and if you happen to send it to Travelers, I will recuse myself, so.
I just had a quick question. Just looking at the figures that you provided for the service and support requests received, just a kind of a jump from 13 to 14, I was curious about what that, what the driver was behind that.
On contractual services,
No, in your key
In your,
states.
in your key, in your key stats that you
That's the service request, from the 16 to the 19.
yeah, I mean, it just shows the sign that we're still getting that incident. Don't forget, we're changing from XP desktops to Windows 7 and Windows 8. So now we're getting calls that tie to it, is that, well, how do you do this in Windows 8? How do you do it in Windows 7? How do you, how do you install a driver? So that desktop level type of errors are showing back up because it's not the old XP legacy systems that we're working with that they're familiar with.
Yep.
So that's one piece of it. And plus, we got tons of projects going on with the fiber and everything else that are just building up our tickets.
And I think to your credit, and you'll see over time, this is just two people.
Right, I mean, there is just
And what
two.
they're able to do with just two people is phenomenal.
The
So-
sooner we get to that virtual world, the sooner we can start to drive those numbers down.
And it's already ingrained in the department, or my department, is that, if we could offload something like cloud-based technology, it's probably the better for us to do that. Because really, in 5 to 7 years, it's going to be that network piece where we're trying to share with other towns on a regional basis, whether it be antivirus, VoIP phones, or something like that. That's where it's going to come from. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Rick, great job. We're on to social services. In social services, there was an error in where we assigned some money. We had asked in the library's budget, they had made some requests for the teen librarian in terms of resources, and we had asked Mickey to work with the librarian through grants. Mickey gives, as you know, many years, gives grants, and they mostly go to the schools, but we asked her to work with the teen librarian and see if there were any grants that could be, take that out of the operating budget.
Thank you.
And they had worked together on that. But unfortunately, Joe transferred the money out of Mickey's budget, and it should have come out of the money they received through grants. So it should not have been reduced in the operating budget. So that's just a, do you want to
I'm
speak to
much
that, Joe?
faster at subtractions than so here cut, it's gone.
But it wasn't really a cut, it was just to look for the library expenses and the grant money that we received and see if there was a compatible grant that would meet that. So it was accidentally cut from Mickey's, so on the wish list, I am requesting that that be restored.
Specifically, where is that on here, or what line item would that be, and what's the amount?
Yeah, it's about 4,000, but Mickey, you want to point it out?
Yes, it's actually under,
Social services,
It's-
public agency support.
So you have 4,000 as a recommended change, you actually want 8?
And most of that is the lateral on the teen center.
That's the teen center, so that 4,000 should not have been
So
reduced,
in
yeah.
essence, she's looking to stay flat.
Yeah.
And that's the grant? Is it, do you get a grant for that, or no?
yeah, I'll get into that just a
All right.
second.
I know,
First of all,
I jumped ahead.
the flash drive that I handed out to you, that we, if you'll notice what it says on it, I'm sure you will.
For the record, it says, "Do the right thing."
We handed these out at the high school as part of the Children's Code program. It's to reward students that are doing the right thing. So I thought that was appropriate. And also the little package I gave you just listed changes in our budget this year. The salaries are changed in the administration by a little bit, in the senior a little bit more, and that's because we were at the receiving end of a bumping situation, and it was a position that came from the library, from the police department to the senior center, and evidently the police department has more money than us because they pay them higher than we do. So when she came, now we have to bump up our budget to pay.
But it's all good.
It's all good.
Because you did the right thing.
We did the right thing.
Back at you.
And then the dollar right contract went up 2.4%, or $2,700. And then transfer from the selectmen's budget, $500 for conference and education, and then the matching fund for the youth services grant. And what that is I apply for many youth services grants, but the two that I apply for through the State Board of Education requires a town match. And that 8,000, even, it was always mislabeled as teen center. It shouldn't have been. It should have been matching funds for this grant. But without that 8,000, we won't get 20-something thousand. So.
And it had been accounted for, it was originally housed in the first selectmen's budget. You
Right.
can sort of understand the logic in switching it back to social services.
So seeing as it's been misappropriated to us in the past, what does it actually do?
Well, it's the matching grant. It's the matching.
What does the grant do? Like, what do you do with the
Well, it buys
$28,000?
It buys the Do the Right Thing flash drives. All the youth services that we provide. We spent last year about $70,000 on youth services. And
One of the things with the books for the community of care.
community of care booklets, we have speakers in. We've got Paul Hop coming in April.
So there's a lot of good things you do with it.
Yeah, we do, all the youth services in town comes from that. We do Family Day, we do the skating party, not the skating party, the safety party at the library, with the library. We do mentoring through the schools. There's a lot of programs that through the schools that we fund. They have to request money from me, and then we allocate that money. And out of this grant money, we're going to be giving $4,000 to the library.
So we're not going to call it a teen center anymore.
We're not going to call it the teen center.
Thank you.
We're gonna do that. The second page is just a graph that shows you Just 3 programs, food assistance, financial assistance, energy assistance. Pretty much financial and energy assistance has pretty much stayed the same, but as you can see, the food assistance is phenomenally, just phenomenal in terms of growth. Last year, we gave food to 7,432 residents. So you can see how that is growing. We have 4 food programs currently. And then lastly is the key accomplishments. I'm not going to read them all, but just some interesting things. We completed 266 energy assistance applications, resulting in $176,300 coming in energy benefits back to Simsbury residents. And this, to get on this program, it's a state program, but to get on it, you have to be very low income. So as you can see, that's 266 low-income households in this town. So I think that's pretty significant. And we completed 110 applications for renters rebate, which brought $55,800 in rebates back to Simsbury residents. We provided financial assistance in the amount of $105,000 last year, and that's things like oil, electric, food, car repairs, things like that. And we're fortunate to be able to spend that kind of money because we collected $134,000 in donations. This is, I've said this every year, but this is a very, very generous town. If we didn't have these donations, we wouldn't be able to do what we do. Youth services, number 8, we provided 38 programs and events to 14,000 Simsbury youth, and we spent about $70,000 in doing so. We held suicide prevention training events, and we trained 376 town managers, educators, community leaders, and residents. We successfully implemented online registration programs at the Senior Center. The Senior Center collaborated with the Simsbury High School to add 6 intergenerational programs, including History Day, luncheons, dinners, and sports nights. And we partnered with the Simsbury Job Bank to resume senior job referrals. And we hosted an art show and opening reception for Senior Center artists. That's just a few of the things that we did last year.
Thank you, Red. Thank you for your efforts, too. Very appreciative.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask, the suicide prevention, I happened to miss that, and so I didn't know, and if there's been changes, folks kind of coming and going, that we might do that again. Or is it something that we would, that would be done annually, or?
We could. That was a grant that we applied for and we were approved for, that paid for all of that. But I think Tom Steen from KSAC is the person who does the training.
Yeah.
So I'm sure he would come out and do it again. So we could probably do that.
And he currently serves on our community for care.
Right.
Yeah.
The only problem is KSAC is one of the cuts that from the government budget, so he might not be there. But if he is, I think we can get him on. We had a great turnout for all the suicide.
It was a great program.
Very good
Really
program.
informative and opened a lot of eyes, I think.
And Mickey, you also helped fund the redoing of the suicide prevention booklets for the schools as well.
For the whole school system, yeah. We did that about 10 years ago, and so we just went through it and just kind of updated all these things.
Any further questions for Mickey? At this point, would anyone like to join me in requesting we restore the $4,000 that was accidentally shifted from the wrong account?
So, yes.
Thank you. We lost Joe already. You got this, Sean? Okay.
Make sure he gets that message.
Yes.
Very
We
strategic.
will do the right thing.
Thank you very much.
Convenient that he walked out of the room.
So can we do 5 before we get to the next one?
Can we do what?
Take 5.
Absolutely. We'll break for 5 minutes and then we'll come back. Thank you.